Short seller Hindenburg Research is back in India's headlines, and along with it, Gautam Adani, and this time the Sebi chief. I'm Barkha Dutt. You're with the Mojo Story. A political war has broken out as Madhabi Buch, the head of Sebi, the market regulator, finds herself in the eye of the storm. The Hindenburg Research report has alleged that Madhabi Buch and her husband have an essential conflict of interest when it comes to investigating allegations of corporate fraud related earlier to the Adani Group, because at one point, Madhabi and her husband made investments in an offshore fund that was linked to the Adani Group. There are several other allegations made by the Hindenburg Research report as well. The report has been embraced and supported by India's opposition parties. Rahul Gandhi is calling the Sebi now something akin to a compromised empire. The BJP is defending Ms. Buch and is arguing that this is, quote unquote, the same toolkit that Rahul Gandhi is encouraging, economic anarchy. Madhabi Buch and her husband have strenuously denied all allegations. While the markets seem to have been resilient, the Adani Group stocks have fallen up to 17%. To understand both the business logic of the allegations and the defense, but also the politics, let me introduce our two guests today, who I suspect are facing off from very differing perspectives. I want to welcome first Mohandas Pai to the program. He's, of course, a well-known industrialist, educationist, venture capitalist. He has been slamming the Hindenburg report on his social media accounts, and we'll find out why in just a moment. Sanjay Hegde has had a very different commentary on his social media accounts. He's, of course, a senior advocate and a well-known analyst. Welcome both of you to the program. Mohan, I'll start with you. You have basically argued that what we are seeing alleged in the Hindenburg research is not credible, is not serious, cannot be taken seriously, and is an attempt to destabilize India's economic markets. But let's get to the essential allegation. The allegation is that Madhabi Buch and her husband have at one point invested in a fund, and that fund is linked to the Adani Group. In fact, the specific allegation is that Adani's brother, Vinod Adani, used it to siphon off funds and make investments and so on. Madhabi Buch does not deny investing in this fund. She says she did it in 2015 when she was a private citizen, and all requisite disclosures have been made. She further argues that the fund is not linked to any transaction to do with the Adani Group. Why do you find these allegations to be non-serious?
Barkha, look at the fund. The fund was run by a company called 360, which was earlier IIFL. The fund manager, Anil Ahuja. The fund had about $48 million. The fund has not made any investment in any Adani company. And that is what the fund manager says. And the fund was redeemed, I think 2018 or 19 or somewhat. The fund was redeemed. I don't think they made any money. So there is no linkage. What are they saying? Anil Ahuja, the manager, was the board of Adani Power or something, because 3i, which he managed, 3i is a very big private equity firm from England. They had an investment, so is the manager. So what is the whole thing? This company, this fund did not invest in any equity of the Adani Group. So what is the linkage? I don't understand the linkage. You can't keep throwing mud. And yes, they invested, they redeemed it, and it's a very normal investment. And they have said that Anil Ahuja was formerly Citibank, JP Morgan, a very reputed guy. He was a fund manager and the boyhood friend of, Madhavi's husband. So I don't know what the big deal is. I mean, they invested a long time ago when nobody knew about Adani, nobody knew the connection. There was no controversy about them like it's blown up today for various reasons. So I don't think you can fling mid and say there's no conflict of interest. And please remember, out of 48 million, they put in some $890,000. They have a net worth of 10 million because both of them are abroad. And her husband, as a very reputed, globally known expert in supply chain, working in Unilever globally, he's earned good money, $10 million, $890,000. I mean, it's chicken feed, $890,000, right? Even for Sanjay and me, it's a very small amount of money, especially for Sanjay. So I don't know what the big deal is about this fund. So this allegation is totally bogus. They're just throwing mud at somebody, hoping something will stick.
Let me ask Sanjay Hegde then, why is it a big deal? right? Yes, there have been other allegations made about the husband's appointment to Blackstone, about her investments in a Singapore offshore firm. But the main one that actually concerns the Adani Group is the operative one. And about that, as Mohan just explained, Madhabi Buch doesn't deny the investment. She says it goes back to 2015. They were private citizens. She and her husband had nothing to do with Sebi then. And she makes the argument that the fund did not have anything to do with derivatives, or equity to do with the Adani Group. What do you say?
Well, firstly, let me clarify. I don't have $10 million or those fractions that Mohan has told you about. Now, after that, let me tell you what I find problematic. What I find problematic is the fact that she is the head of the institution, which was asked by the Supreme Court to investigate the Adani allegations, which were made by Hindenburg and all that. Was a disclosure made to the Supreme Court? Look, sir, I am conflicted. I should, in all fairness, disclose this to you. I'm just telling you the law. Long ago, there was a judgment given by the House of Lords that the particular Lord Chancellor had one share in that company. And then that entire judgment had to be set aside, because the principle is that justice is not only to be done, but has to be seen to be done. Now, for your viewers, let me give them a more commonplace example. You remember that West Indian umpire, Steve Bucknor, who gave those horrendous decisions against Sachin Tendulkar. And then India sort of played off. Now, if it had been revealed that Mr. Bucknor had some stake in a betting firm somewhere or something, then all those decisions would come under a cloud. So similarly, what has happened here today is that this lack of disclosure, specifically to the Supreme Court, has cast a huge cloud not only on Ms. Buch herself, but on the Supreme Court judgment. So the Supreme Court has therefore acted on data which possibly could have been compromised. Now,
so you're saying, hang on.
Yeah.
You're saying when Supreme Court in its order said that Sebi had drawn a blank. Now, are you either saying that the Supreme Court was not given full information, or are you saying the Supreme Court should have asked more questions? Which one are you saying, Sanjay?
No, I am saying that if the Supreme Court had been told about Ms. Buch's connection with this fund, and that there is a possible that it was possible to see it as a conflict, the Supreme Court may not have entrusted it to Sebi. It may have entrusted it to some other investigating agency. And now that all this has come out in the public domain, the Supreme Court may well have to consider, was its earlier decision to rely solely on the Sebi investigation, was it right? Or does it need a relook?
Let's take this to Mohan. Mohan, you're shaking your head vigorously in disagreement. Let's rewind once again. Let us just remind our audience that what Sanjay is arguing is that the Supreme Court, in the light of these revelations, which have not been denied per se by Madhabi Buch, the Supreme Court has to reopen or revisit its earlier response. Why do you disagree?
It's a very specious argument. First of all, that fund where she invested has no connection with the Adanis. What is the connection? I don't see any connection. I don't see any connection at all. The fund did not invest in the Adani company. The fund was redeemed in 2018 or 19. She became the chair much later. And when she became the chair of Sebi and Supreme Court entrusted to Sebi, she is not the investigating officer. The investigation is done by people who are whole-time members. She has got nothing to do with it. The whole-time members are given a reasoned order with all kind of data. There was a committee about that led by KV Kamath, which supervised everything. And that committee gave its own opinion. Where is the conflict of interest? There is no conflict of interest at all. I mean, the fund is not linked to Adani in any manner whatsoever. I mean, what is the link? I don't understand the link. They've not bought shares of Adani. Even if they bought shares of Adani, they're done long back. And in the fund, you don't decide as an investor what the fund manager buys. You just invest in the fund manager buys and sells. You don't even know what they do until they disclose to you. You have no authority. It's like a blind pool fund. You see, in the West, there is a concept. If you have investments and you become a regulator, you put it into a blind pool or a blind trust where an independent person runs it, and they do what they want, and your opinion, your decision is not taken at all. That's the way things are done. She has no need to disclose anything because she's not holding that fund, and the fund has never invested in Adani company. So what is this conflict of interest? I'm not able to understand at all. And why should Supreme Court of all of them get upset about any proposed conflict of interest? And what is the need for her to disclose anything there, because there's nothing to disclose? It's a dead issue which happened long back, and such a small issue which is of no consequence to anybody.
Let's look at the allegations. If we can just go back to the previous slide. The previous slide, Sanjay, talks about the operative allegation. Can we go back to the previous slide? Is that Madhabi Buch and her husband invested in an offshore fund linked to the Adani Group. Now, Mohan says, no, that's the allegation. That's the
allegation.
No, I'm just saying.
Yes.
I know. I'm just saying this is the allegation, right? The other allegations relate to, and we can move on now on the slides. The other allegations relate to 100% interest that she has in a Singapore offshore consultancy, and goes on to question why her husband should have been appointed to Blackstone. Now, let's also carry the responses that have been made by Miss Buch, Sanjay, and they are also very strenuous and very vehemently made responses. She basically says that the investment in the fund A was when we were private citizens. It goes back to the time of 2015. She then goes on to argue that this fund has no operative link to the Adani fund because the fund did not invest in any Adani bond, derivative or equity. And finally, she says that this is tantamount to character assassination because we are investigating Hindenburg for violations and they don't want to come under our scrutiny, so they've hit back with this. What do you say, Sanjay Hegde? I can't hear Sanjay, please unmute.
Can you hear me now?
I can. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Well, her personal grouse with Hindenburg, she can take it up in anything. But first, if she was to carry out a task for the Supreme Court, then she had to make a disclosure. That disclosure has never been made. As far as this fund itself is concerned, she may say that as when she was a stakeholder, there were no transactions with Adani. But Hindenburg's allegation is that this fund was used also by Vinod Adani, who is a Cypriot national today, based in Singapore, to make transactions into India. So the entire nature of the transactions is right now at large, may merit investigation. The basic question always, I mean, I'm speaking from a legal perspective. Caesar's wife must be above suspicion, always. And
do you believe that do you believe? Sorry, complete your point.
Yeah. So I was referring to the other great Supreme Court judge, Justice Kadju, who whenever some matter relating to Reliance or something came about, he would duck it. He would say, I have shares in Reliance. I don't want anything said about me. Zamana kharab hai. And he would not take it.
Okay.
So given all that, the very minimum, there should have been a full and final disclosure. And then
disclosure.
After that, do you still want me to investigate?
Okay, her claim,
organization.
I could be wrong in this, but her claim is that all requisite disclosures were made at the appropriate time, not just with Sebi, but also with all affiliated authorities. You're saying those disclosures were not made.
No, the disclosure was not made to the Supreme Court when it entrusted the investigation.
I see.
That is my point.
I see. I'll get Mohan to respond to that. I have a quick question of you. The opposition has demanded Madhabi Buch's resignation. Do you believe that that is a legitimate demand?
Well, people have resigned for less. People have resigned for much less. Mr. Chidambaram, during the 92 Securities scam, just because he had shares in Fair Growth, which was then under investigation, he ended up resigning. So while these are individual standards that you draw, no, I am not concerned, I don't know, this, that, and the other. But the basic principle is always this, that your stand should be seen as being above board, and that the slightest conflict of interest should always be disclosed.
Mohan, the political responses, just one second, the political responses have been somewhat predictable. The BJP says it's toolkit, there's a George Soros link, Rahul Gandhi wants instability, economic anarchy, but the BJP already under fire for being too close to Adani as far as the opposition is concerned. Why do you think the BJP is jumping to the defense of either Adani or Madhabi Buch? This should be decided by some third empire or third party, right? There should be, or do you think it's a non-issue that it doesn't even need a preliminary investigation? Mohan
Barkha, it doesn't. Barkha is an open and shut case. That fund has not invested in any Adani company. It is certified by the fund manager, and the money has been redeemed long ago before she became a member of Sebi. Okay, and there was no controversy of any Adani at that point of time when she became a member. Controversy is only erupted now after she became a member. So I think that is a dead issue. If Sanjay feels that it should disclose what? You don't have any investment. That is never made investment Adani. There is no connection. So what are you going to disclose?
What about Vinod? What about the allegation that Vinod Adani who's no longer an Indian citizen, has used money from this fund? Some even suggest to siphon off money. I don't know. I'm just quoting the allegation.
Barkha, I can say Barkha that used money from Sanjay's account to siphon off. What is the value of that allegation? I can say Sanjay got so much of money from a goon to do so and so. What is the value of the allegation? You can make allegation in me. What is the value? You must provide evidence. There is no evidence. The fund manager said they have not invested in Adani, no stock Adani. And as far as I know, it must be a debt fund. I don't know if there is equity fund. I don't know. But that's what it is. When the fund manager has said that, it is certified. There is no need, there is no conflict of interest. So it's a dead issue. And so Vinod Adani, you throw Vinod Adani, what does Vinod Adani got to do with this fund? No evidence has been placed. Then what does he got to do with this fund? And even
hang on. She has not denied the investment in this fund. I read reports. I don't know if this is true that the childhood friend was also a director in some Adani Group company. I don't know if that, right? So there's also that Adani link that the childhood friend on whose friendship they invested this money also was a director in the Adani Group. Am I right or am I wrong? I'm just asking.
No, you're right. You're right. They say Anil Ahuja was representing 3i, was an investor. It is a private equity fund. I think they had invested in Adani Power. So he must have been a director there. But that is totally irrelevant because there is no connection with that because you are a representative or a nominee director. You are not Adani's director. You are nominee director at that point of time. So I don't think this holds water at all. Just throwing mud at somebody. For example, you, I, as Sanjay, are a director somewhere. We represent a nominee. We are a nominee of some big fund. I mean, we are representing the fund. We are not there because of friend of somebody. And that company does a fraud. We are not responsible. You understand? You can't go on linking anybody unless you have a direct role to play. There's no direct role to play. You are a nominee. So where does Vinod Adani come in? There is no evidence say Vinod Adani is connected with anything in any way. So I think there's a very frivolous argument. And it happened many years ago when there was no controversy, there is no connection. So I think this is totally frivolous and there is no conflict of interest there. It's ridiculous.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde, can I ask you, if you were to define, if you were saying to the Supreme Court that, look, you in your last response did not have the full facts, this is the problem, what would that problem be, Sanjay Hegde?
Well, I would tell the Supreme Court that you have dismissed the petition and said that Sebi could not find anything, but Sebi is headed by somebody who had a direct conflict of interest. So therefore, you should not have relied on Sebi.
But define the conflict. Mohan questions, what's the conflict? You have to define the conflict. Define the conflict.
Well, the conflict is this. And I'm quoting the report itself.
Yes.
The fund itself is a small offshore Mauritius fund set up by an Adani director. That was Ahuja.
Yes.
Through India Infoline, a wealth management company, which Vinod Adani used to use to structure his investments into the Indian market from over-invoicing of power equipment to the Adani Group. So now if you want to explain all that, basically, whenever coal is imported to India, if it is shown at a highly over-invoiced rate, where does that profit is then taken off because that money is paid abroad. That profit is skimmed off and then it comes back into India as foreign portfolio investment through these kind of wealth management agencies. Now,
But
the same
Sanjay,
wealth
by that definition, any investment in the private market is a potential conflict of interest for a SEBI chief. Any investment, right? By this definition, any shares you own, any investment you make tomorrow, that company could come under your own scanner. So what do you do?
Yes. So at that point of time, you say, look, there is this problem. Therefore, I will be recusing. It will be totally hands off. Did you do that? When the
Okay,
Supreme Court
yeah.
entrusted such an important investigation, did you tell the Supreme Court? No.
Okay, that's a
Disclosures may have been made internally.
That's a fair question, Mohandas Pai. Disclosures may have been made internally, but they should have been placed in the public domain before the court and the people. What do you say, Mr. Pai?
Barkha, there is no need for any disclosure. This is an old event where there is nothing to do with the investment to somebody else. Now, let me tell you, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs are global banks. They deal with a lot of clients. One of their clients happened to be a crook. I deal with them. So am I associated by Tain because of that? That's the business they're doing. IIFL has got some relation. That is their problem. What has that got to do with me? I got nothing to do with IIFL. Suppose you have a mutual fund. Okay, you invest in a mutual fund. All of us invest in mutual fund. That mutual fund has made an investment in Adani Group. So all of us, millions of people, investment are tainted. What kind of logic is this? That's a business deal. If there's any criminality in the business, you go after them. And as far as I know, all this war invoicing has been thrown out in the courts. There is no evidence. People slang mud. It's been thrown in the courts. I've not seen any conviction for that. It's a very old statement that happened. You did that, for example, there's a claim that the war invoice for some Tamil Nadu generation company or something like that. That's been thrown out. I mean, you can fling mud anywhere. See, but Barkha, you go on flinging mud against everybody, hoping somebody will stick. Then you have politicians who can't read the report, who say, I want JPC, for no reason. You can malign anybody in this country. You can be maligned, Sanjay can be maligned, I can be maligned, everybody can be maligned. And Sanjay or a lawyer like that will come and say, oh, this conflict, this should have happened, that should happen, that should happen. The best thing Sanjay should do, go file a PIL with Supreme Court and tell the Supreme Court all this, and let's see how the Supreme Court deals with it.
Let's talk about lawyers. You know, there was also an allegation of conflict of interest because of Cyril Shroff's familial relations by marriage with Gautam Adani. So I guess the question is how far do you push this? If it is about, Caesar's wife should be above suspicion, then, I take your point that sunlight is the best disinfectant, but we have to be clear what we are specifically accusing Madhabi of. Are we accusing her of not placing this information before the court? Are we accusing her of something else? What is the accusation?
Would be several accusations, right? Hindenburg has made one set of accusations. Maybe the courts will ask those questions. The courts might say, yes. Look, did you tell us? And if you had told us, maybe we would have still trusted you. We would have said that because you told us, we trust you. Now just keep that aside and go ahead. That could have been. But when you do not disclose, thereafter send a report saying that I can't find anything, then that very investigation becomes suspect, right? So at the very least, the court might say that fine. Now we keep Sebi aside. We ask X, Y, or Z to take a relook into all these allegations. That may very well happen. I don't know which way the case will.
Before I get Mohan to respond to that about Hindenburg itself, you see. Yes. Everybody in this, nobody is jisko kehte na koi doodh mein nahi dhula. Nobody is bathed in milk in this story potentially, because Hindenburg itself is a short seller. It has an aim. It has an aim to play the markets and make a profit, right? It wants to short the market. Now, given that it wants to short the market, what is its own credibility according to you?
What is so virtuous about being long on the market as opposed to being short on the market? It's the same thing, right?
Right.
You may think that something is overpriced, and it is overpriced for X, Y, Z reasons, which you're putting out in the public. Fine.
Yeah.
You may think that it is underpriced, and because of that, you decide to go long in the public in the market and put it out in the public. For these reasons, I am buying. It is for others to follow, not to follow.
Barkha,
Mohan, it's
Barkha,
also
you
Mohan.
create-
Mohan,
no,
if
I'll
you
answer
take
that. I'll answer that.
okay,
I'll
okay,
answer that.
okay.
Sanjay's got it wrong. Barkha, you create a fake report. You make a big allegation about nothing with no evidence. You release in the market. Before that, you've taken a position, you sold short. Then the report is released. You are guilty. You are guilty of creating a market, and you can be held guilty. There are a number of cases there where people have done that, they've been held guilty. Even Hindenburg has been held guilty by regulators in the US for doing this kind of thing regularly. They've been held guilty. It's a vulture fund which has been held guilty.
Okay, which part of the report is fake? You said it's a fake. Once again, Sanjay, you said it's a fake report. Can you identify, Mohandas Pai, which part? Because the investment is not fake. You are simply saying that the investment by itself does not create a conflict of interest because there's no financial transaction linked to Adani. Yes.
Barkha, the allegations are fake. The fact she invested in the fund is real because she has admitted that the data is there. The allegation that this was used by that Adani to manipulate is fake. Second thing is that the fund manager was connected Adani, so is manipulated or something is fake. The diversion of money is fake. And then IIFL has got some wisecrack or some silly company where they did this. What has that got to do with this? And to the timing. All this happened. The fund investment is so small. $890,000 of 48 million, so small. It is not material. It's not even material. It's earlier. And when the investigation taking place, there's no stake. This Sunday, our great lawyer gave that idea of a judge having one share. She doesn't have any shares now. When the Supreme Court entrusted to her,
but she transferred them to her husband's name. She transferred them to her husband's name.
No, they redeemed the fund. They redeemed the fund. The fund was redeemed. Please. The fund was redeemed, not transferred to the husband.
Sorry, you're right. You're right. This fund was redeemed, and the Singapore investment was transferred to her husband's name.
Yes, right? The fund was redeemed. She had a consulting organization which is transferred to her husband. That's fine. Please remember, her husband is a globally acknowledged expert in supply chain, head of global supply chain for Unilever. I mean, he consulted. He earned some $250,000. $250,000 for a global consultant in chicken feed. It's a small amount of money. I'm sure that Sanjay gets more fees for most of it. I hope he gets it. But I want him to have 10 million so we can fling something at him and say he got it by this and that. Then he'll be on the opposite side. So I think, look.
I can't even count the number of zeros in these millions that you all seem to have in wealth. But Sanjay Hegde. Okay, it's a serious question. Okay, what's happening is that there are very extreme caricatured political responses. There's Rahul Gandhi and the opposition saying resign now. There's BJP saying toolkit, George Soros. Right in the middle of this, there are citizens saying, okay, hang on. What do we have the right to know? Please explain this to us in a sober way. What is that sober way that you're going to explain this without wearing political affiliations?
Okay, listen, we've had some very decent Sebi chairmen much earlier. They came up through the system. They did not have too many investments and they did not look conflicted. It's just like this. Supposing we have a very rich lawyer who becomes a judge, right? And he has had friends like Mohandas Pai in industry. And then one of not Mohandas Pai's, but maybe the group conglomerate cases come up before him. And he decides in a certain manner. Then is that appearance of impartiality not compromised? And people, and these are actual cases which have happened to judges.
So let me put a question to you before Mohan responds. Prasad Duvuri, one of our very regular viewers, says, Barkha, the fact that we are discussing this topic on so many forums itself proves the point that the short seller has made money by sowing seeds of doubt. Do they care if what they said is true or not? Sanjay, you want to take that before Mohan comes in?
Yeah,
and both of you,
No, see,
go ahead.
If there is nothing in the allegations, and the fellow is short, the market goes up, the fellow will lose money, right? So it is obvious that only after he does his due diligence with his money, that he goes short and says that, look, this is all that I found, and I think I'm making money short selling it. And those of you who are inside, you better be warned that your investments are not good. The point is that it's not only Hindenburg. There's a group called Muddy Waters. Muddy Waters gave a similar report about Western Union and one Mr. B.R. Shetty in Dubai, and the whole group sank.
So Mohan,
Hindenburg has given many other reports. On some, the SEC has taken action. Some,
yeah,
the CEOs have been even arrested. So
I need to take last comments from both of you. Mohan, my question to you is this. It is an obscure offshore account, right? For most Indians, offshore equals something dodgy. I know that's not the law, but generally, whenever we want to fling mud at somebody, we say, "Ha, unka to investment bahar offshore account mein hai." I think all that Sanjay is arguing is not illegality, but transparency. That when Madhabi Buch was before the Supreme Court, she could have just taken that extra step of placing her prior investments before the court, which in any manner even created the whiff of suspicion. That is all I think he's saying. Do you agree or disagree with that, Mohandas Bhai?
I totally disagree, because what is the relevance? What is the relevance? You go back 100 years to say, from the time I was born, I got this money. Look, she was the non-resident person at that point of time. She had money in dollars. She put money into a fund. It is very common for people abroad who invest in India to go through a tax haven like they did in Bermuda. It's very common. Many people do that. It's been done. It's being done. It's very common. She did it. She redeemed the money, and there is no connection to Adani, and the fund has never invested in Adani. What is the need for any disclosure? If she
and what do you think? What do you think of the other two allegations? The one, if we can just bring up the allegations one last time, as I take last comments from both of you. The other two allegations are the 100% interest in a Singapore offshore consultancy, and the fact that the Blackstone appointment itself, that's her husband's appointment, is a potential conflict of interest, given sort of Sebi's dealings in the real estate sector. Go ahead, Mohan. Yes.
Barkha, Blackstone has clarified he had nothing to do with the REIT. He was not hired as a consultant for his knowledge of the REIT. He is hired as a consultant for his supply chain knowledge with companies in which they have invested. So nothing to do with the REIT. Now, let me advise you how SEBI's regulations are done, because I have headed committees for SEBI. I know it. One, the SEBI chairman has no role to play in creating any particular regulations for anybody. The SEBI team creates a draft regulation. It goes before a consultative committee. The consultative committee gives its opinion. Then it's put up a public comment. Public give a comment. It goes back to the committee. The committee revises the draft. It goes back to SEBI. It goes to the board. Now it is done for the market. That is not done to favor anybody, any point of time. I'm told Sanjay has been on maybe regulatory committees of SEBI or RBI. That the process they follow is a very fair, transparent process. So that argument doesn't hold water, that your husband was hired by this guy and they had a REIT and you did this. I mean, the REIT were very independently done by a lot of independent people for the benefit of the market after benchmarking against global norms. At the very transparent process. SEBI has got the most transparent process for regulations in the country, comparable with SEC and all of the global marks being globally benchmarked. You can't make that allegation. It's so ridiculous.
Okay, Sanjay Hegde, is this a storm in a teacup then? What are you expecting next? Last word.
Well, I don't think the storm will blow away easily. The point is that nobody likes being lied to or being told the half-truth to. People are entitled to take an informed decision, whether it is the courts or whether it is the public. And a market regulator who is designed to look at individual excesses by market operators should not necessarily be having any stakes in any of the operations that they investigate.
Okay. So now what? Is it up to the Supreme Court? What happened? I mean, what is, like, the government has made it clear that it thinks it's a non-issue, that it's an opposition, even an externally fueled attempts to weaken India's market. So what next? Sanjay, very quickly.
I would think that it would go both in Parliament as well as in the court. Both avenues will be pursued.
Okay, we will have to leave it there. Madhabi Buch so far has strenuously argued her innocence. The markets are resilient, but the Adani stock has fallen up to 17%. We will continue to watch this story. Mohandas Pai and Sanjay Hegde, were you wanting to say something there, Sanjay? Can we unmute Sanjay, please? I can't hear him.
I didn't know about 17% today.
Up to 17% is what some of the stocks. Mohan is also now trying to say something. Mohan?
No. I'm not seeing 17% anyway. I see 3 or 4% in some of which is very normal.
Yes.
I'm not 17%. You see,
Okay,
Barkha,
then yeah.
like Sanjay said, definitely the opposition will raise it because they want to raise an issue. Definitely, we know some lawyers will go to Supreme Court because that is their nature. And definitely, I don't know whether my friend Sanjay will also. Sanjay should file because he holds
I should correct myself. The Adani Group stocks have fallen up to 7%, not 17%. I beg your pardon. I was just checking that again. I read that 7% or 17 in a hurry. My mistake there.
It's
Yes.
okay. And the market has rubbished it. The market ignored it. And please remember, this Hindenburg also did a hit job on a Nigerian company and lost their shirt. I mean, it's the nature of the beast to create fear and get the market and sell before and then do all kind of stuff. Anyway, whatever it is, my view is doesn't hold water. They're throwing mud and getting all kind of irrelevant thing just to throw mud. Opposition will go to parliament. They will create halabulla. They will close shut parliament. They have to do that and they will lose. And some people will go to, they should go to Supreme Court. And I hope a Supreme Court listens to them and throws it out, telling it's all rubbish. Then, I hope they'll be closed. Because some lawyers close it out, don't even accept that. Because they're convinced that they are jury judge.
Before you have your closing comments, I'm not normally this wrong. So we pulled out these details. Adani Energy Solutions nosedived at 70%. Adani Total Gas tanked 13.39%. NDTV plunged 11%. Adani Power dropped 10.94%. And some of these stocks began to recover by close of day. So I think it was aggregated to up to 17% because one of the companies did fall up to 17%. So I just wanted to clarify. That. Quick last 30 seconds to both of you. Mohandas Pai, what next? Does it fade off the headlines if it's a big issue in if someone takes it back to Supreme Court? The opposition will clearly demand the JPC. What happens next? What should Madhabi Buch do? Resign or stay?
No. Madhabi Buch should stay because that's the hazard of the job. The lawyers should take it to Supreme Court. And I'm sure the Supreme Court will throw it out and hope the controversy ends.
Sanjay, Madhabi Buch opens herself up to any investigation, or is the demand for a resignation fair?
I think it is fair because she did not disclose. It's just like that. Like Mr. Kalyan Singh once gave an affidavit that the structure would stay. And thereafter, the Supreme Court convicted him for a day. So many people in court do this classic Ashwatthama Hataha. Do not tell which means telling a half truth. The elephant named Ashwatthama died, and then saying that Ashwatthama the man died. These are two different things. So whenever half truths are told and then they come out later, I think that courts do not look kindly on them. But I would advise people, my fraternity, do not rush to court immediately. Let the story play out. There will be much more coming.
Mohan, why are you laughing? Mohan, why are you laughing? Can't hear you, Mohan. Can't hear you.
Barkha, he doesn't want people to go to court because he'll be thrown out. They won't have fun for the next 2-3 months. They can't create halabulla. Now they create halabulla. It's fine. Let's have some fun.
No, let me clarify. Many a time we have seen half-baked petitions which have been rushed, and we do not know. And these are frequent filers. We do not know at whose behest that those petitions get filed, and those get into problems. So that's what. Do a good job before you run into court.
Okay, we will leave it there. I think the last word by both of you has been spoken. Neither is closer to any agreement to the other's point of view. So I think this is headed to Parliament or to the Supreme Court or both. But for the moment, thank you, Mohandas Pai and Sanjay Hegde. Always a pleasure. To our audience, see you soon. It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.